All right, we are live on our Facebook page to answer real life questions, Q&A with ENS, and I took a little peek at some of the questions so that I could come up with a fancy title. And today it seems like you and I are going to be answering a few questions about stretching for different specific muscles, supplementation for specific scenarios, potentially how to overcome stress and anxiety. So some powerful things.
So let's get to it, shall we?
We shall absolutely. And you know what? If you're here live with us, we love to see on the Facebook group who is here. Yeah, we got a new background because we're trying to make the audio better for you guys.
Yeah.
So, this setup situation. Anyway, so welcome to another room in our house. This is very exciting. And let us know if you guys can hear us well. Let's just jump straight in. What do you think about it?
Yeah, let's get to it.
All right, so Sarit, what?
Real quick, we do have our ENS live event coming up in just a little under 2 months. So, you know, we're really excited. I know that a lot of you guys, I think over 60 of you guys have already joined us. Just a reminder that you can join us either in person or virtual. We would love to meet you guys in person, work out with you, sweat with you, you know, teach you some stuff, get to know you on a deep and personal level. You know, I know that this community is already fabulous, you know, in the online setting. However, there's just magic of the in-person. So if you haven't already heard about it, definitely want to make sure that you do hear about it. And to learn more about ENS Live, you can simply just go to shop.erinsarit.com. And if you happen to have any questions about ENS Live, you can also feel free to drop it here because we want to see you. All right.
I want to back that ass up a little bit because I feel like we're really big old faces in the thing. All right. Okay, so check it out. We do this on Fridays, typically, unless we are out of town and wrapped up on a Friday. But we have a form where
when are we not wrapped up?
Well, I mean, when we're like literally in an event and yeah. Okay, so we have a form. If you have any questions, you can ask your questions. Danny, can you drop that form? She probably already did it when she heard me say it. You're the queen, baby. Also, you know, we have on our YouTube channel, we have our podcast you guys can listen to. So, you know, we try to take this content and put it on as many channels as we can so that regardless of how you would like to consume content and self-development and self-improvement things, you can go check out any of those platforms. We're also like jamming over here on TikTok, which is cool. What's up, y'all? And so
everywhere.
Let's get to the questions.
Let's do it.
Yo, ticker talker.
Ticker talker.
All right, so Sarit, first question comes from Melissa. Melissa said, "What are your best or favorite stretches or exercises for the psoas muscle for building and releasing? Thanks, blue heart, blue heart." I feel like we're gonna need some demonstrations for this.
So, in terms of the psoas, look, this is a case-by-case basis. You know, it's not so much about what's the favorite, it's about what works for you. And, you know, one of the more effective psoas releasing exercises is either like the kettlebell smash or you smashing your body on a lacrosse ball. I personally prefer the kettlebell more because I feel like I have more control over the pressure that I'm applying. When you put your entire body to it, it could be very, very intense.
I want to say something actually. For people, for those of you who don't know what the psoas muscle is, it's a really big muscle that goes through the middle of your hip. It attaches to your lumbar spines, like the back, the lower back. It goes through your hip and then it attaches to the very top of your quad. And so it has a lot of impact on what's happening in this whole region right here.
Mm-hmm. And if there is too much compression or pressure over it, you need to release it. It's going to feel really, really uncomfortable.
Really
So,
uncomfortable.
you know, this is why I say it depends. Like, you will probably need it only, you know, when you feel that extreme pressure and you'll want to release it. That one is my absolute favorite. I don't know if you have, you know, any other preferences, but yeah, Melissa.
Like the handle of the kettlebell?
Yeah.
You could even take the big part. If you just think about anything you're stretching with, anything you're doing, like foam rolling or like self-myofascial release of some kind, which is basically like putting pressure on a muscle, getting the tissues to loosen up. If the bigger surface area you're using, the less intense it's going to feel, and the smaller surface area that you're using, the more intense it's going to feel. So Sarit's talking about a kettlebell. Obviously, okay, if you start with like an 18-pound kettlebell and you use like the actual bell part of it, it's going to feel a lot different. I don't think on Facebook they can see, but it's like you can get in right here. It's like if you have your hip bone, it's like right
in there.
Ooh, it's nasty. Anyways,
there.
so if you get like the bell part and you put it there, obviously it's not going to be as intense. If you use a heavier kettlebell, it's going to be more intense.
Yeah.
If you turn it around and you actually use like the top part of the handle, flip it upside down, and you put the handle right in there, you kind of like dig it in and like get it underneath your hip bone. Oh, it is spicy. But I will tell you, one of the best techniques you can use too when you're doing that, first of all, just get used to it. Just take deep breaths, really deep, slow, controlled breaths. And as you are getting that, like exhaling carbon dioxide and taking in the oxygen to the muscles, you're allowing it to release. So the breathing part of that is very important. But then also to move your leg. So it's actually like move that muscle, lengthen it and let it shorten, and then lengthen it and let it shorten. So like if you have your knee bent like this and you start with it like that, that muscle's in a shorter position. And then when you have the kettlebell or something in there and you straighten your leg and you lengthen that muscle, you're gonna work a little bit more of the kinks out, if you will. So anyways, gosh, I haven't done that in a while and I probably should. An overactive psoas too, by the way, contributes a lot to low back pain. So probably a good
So
idea.
if you have low back pain too, maybe some glute stretches and hip flexor stretches would be helpful.
I would say glute activating.
Also glute activating. Hip flexor, glute activators.
The majority of chronic low back pain is what contributes to that is like weak glutes and
core.
and a weak core and overactive like the front of your body, hip flexors, any of these muscles that connect in here.
And that's normally caused from, just modern living, just sitting in a chair all day.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a chiropractor, you might see this, like, when you enter their office, like, sitting is the new smoking, right? Like, movement is food and food is medicine. And when you're sitting all day, you are closing your hips and you're weakening what's called your posterior chin, which is basically like all of your back muscles that help to keep things nice and stable and tight. And by doing that, you're basically just breaking down your system. So that is why, when it comes to training, you want to train in an effective way that allows you to incorporate movement patterns that will allow you to stay here for a longer period of time. Otherwise it's going to affect your posture, which is going to lead to bone degeneration, which is going to lead to improper movement, which is going to lead to increased injuries. And, if injuries are involved and people don't know how to eat right or manage their mind, then that can lead to increased weight gain and just self-sabotage and,
It's all connected.
it's a chain. It's a chain, you guys, and it's all connected. And sometimes all it takes is for this one slip to break the entire chain. How many times have you heard people, I was so good until I got injured? Like, it doesn't have to be the case, and that's why we do what we do. And by the way, if you're joining us for the very first time, we're very grateful to have you here.
Welcome.
Because we're here to help.
Welcome.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Second question from Heidi. Heidi said, going to Peru next year, which is awesome. We'll be hiking at elevation. Any XND supplement recommendations?
Yes.
For those of you who don't know, XND is shortened for X Endurance, which is a supplement company that we're affiliated with. And if you want more information on that, depending on where you're watching this or listening to this, you can go to our link in pretty much any bio page on any social media to find a free supplement guide that we made with their products. You can check show notes on a podcast. You can check the link in the description of a YouTube video. By the way, I just kind of nonchalantly have been mentioning podcasts. You guys, many of you, I discovered, don't know that we have a podcast. And, well, this is our fault because for about a year we didn't post any podcasts. And
we take full responsibility.
And we're going to be doing it again because we found out that people still listen to it, and you guys really loved it. And when some of you all found out that we had one, you freaked out a little bit, and we're scrambling to try to figure out where to go. It's on Spotify, it's on Apple, it's on a bunch of different channels. Anyways, we are going to be relaunching that next Friday. If you're listening to this, I don't know, it's probably already relaunched if you're listening to it back later. But yes, so that's where to find X Endurance stuff. Reach out to us somehow, support@erinsarit.com if you want to figure out how to get a discount if it's your first order. But yes, the answer to your question is, however,
What?
I think there's some pre-work that goes into hiking at elevation and not just relying on supplementation.
Yeah, so let's begin by answering the question and then the why behind it.
And then
So the supplement that I would recommend for you is the Extreme Endurance and or the Essential. Heidi, you might be taking it already. And, you know, when you are climbing at higher elevation, the levels of oxygen decrease. So, the better you can adapt yourself to an environment with lower oxygen, of course, the better it will be. And one of the things that the Extreme Endurance or the Essential, it's by the way the same exact product, is, it will help you to, maximize your performance either in the absence of oxygen or just increase oxygen reuptake. And for that is the reason that I would recommend that. However, of course, Heidi, I'm sure that you're probably working on this. I know you're working with Coach Danny, and you guys have probably talked about this before. But, doing endurance-specific training will definitely help because it's, a form of adaptation for your lungs, right? Like, you want to make sure that your lungs can adapt more quickly to, absorbing as much oxygen as possible in an environment that has, a lesser oxygen concentration in the first place. So, why do we share it with you that way is because do not just take the supplement and expect for things to change. The point is that you focus on the foundation, which I'm sure you're doing, and you train different levels of energy system, not just steady state cardio. I will go also high intensity steady state. I will go anaerobic so that you're able to train different energy systems.
what's anaerobic?
So
High intensity steady state.
yeah,
Right, but what does that mean?
high intensity steady state.
No, what does anaerobic mean versus aerobic?
So anaerobic training and anaerobic training are two different.
Anaerobic and aerobic.
and aerobic. We're talking, so they exploit a different energy system.
You ever say a word so many times you literally forget the meaning, or like it starts to sound really funny? Aerobic.
Yeah, so we're going in a different tangent. However, in the body we have, like 3 energy systems. We have the aerobic, we have the anaerobic, and we have the creatine phosphate. Okay? Creatine phosphate, has a lot to do with power movements and explosive movements. Anaerobic has to do with, like quicker, shorter bouts, so like sprinting, that sort of thing. And then aerobic is, like the longer, steady state, right? So of course, there is, like, for example, with the creatine phosphate, you don't even need any presence of oxygen. That's why I didn't mention that. However, with the anaerobic, oxygen is involved, and it is a more effective way to utilize oxygen. That's why I say don't just go for aerobic training, like, okay, let me do a 5K, let me go for a long walk, but also let's do some sprints in there, because that will allow you to utilize oxygen more effectively.
Because you're forced to take it in greater quantities faster, because your body needs it to handle kind of the amount of exertion that you're.
Yeah. And Heidi, knowing you, you're probably doing the burn zones or the underground training club, and in these 2 programs, be it the burn zone or the underground training club, you will be exploiting those 2 energy systems. So by the way, if you're listening to this for the very first time, and you're interested in following a workout training program that can help you to get fitter, get stronger, feel more toned, increase your aerobic capacity,
She's on
increase your
burn zone
endurance.
4.
Oh, she is. Okay, fabulous. Then great. Then you're working on it. However, if you're listening to this for the very first time, you can definitely check out our subscription at shop.erinsarit.com, and we have a multitude of different programs in there. It's kind of like an online gym. Where
By the way, we're working on adding another program.
Yes, we're always working on something. Who is in the UTC? Beth, I see you, dude. You're getting so freaking strong.
UTC for life.
Yeah, if you're in the UTC, let me see you drop a double flex. If you're in the burn zone, let me see you drop a flex.
All right, and while they're doing that, we'll get to another question, yeah?
Yeah.
All right, this is the last one I peeked at. Helena asks, any advice or tools for how to overcome stress/anxiety when you feel your physical response going up, like heart rate, shakiness, etc.? Wow. For the record,
This is good.
For the record, both Sarit and I have experienced stress and anxiety. And the opportunity is there for every person to experience stress and anxiety on a daily basis. My brain just went down like a whole bunch of different paths, thinking about like, this is why we're always in fight and flight. And it's not, we don't even have to be getting chased by a saber-toothed tiger. A long time ago, it was a saber-toothed tiger, but now, and stress and anxiety and all these fight or flight is what leads to all these other things that are happening in our internal environment, acidic and blah, 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 and my head went in so many places. Anyways, the answer is yes. And the number one way that I would say the women in our community, the tools that they use to handle stress and anxiety is food. Food and or alcohol.
Debilitating
Or both.
tools.
And so I love that this question is being asked, because it's probably one of the number one causes, not just from like a coping with food standpoint, but when you don't know how to manage stress, it's easy to become anxious, and it creates a toxic internal environment, and then you just have like other physical things start happening besides just the like increase in heart rate and shakiness. These are things that are like the immediate response. It made me think of the Ellen stand-up where she's like, all these commercials on TV are just like making us sick. Are you sad? Are you depressed? Do you get anxiety? She's like, yes, I'm alive. I have all those things, which I think is very like simple but also profound. Yes, I'm alive. I have all of those things. We think it's a bad thing if we experience anxiety, depression, or stress, but these are a part of being alive. The question is, how do we handle these? How do we cope with these? How do we manage these in a healthy way? So I'll let you start on that because I just talked a lot.
Yeah, and the answer is that it's different for everybody, right? Like what may work for me may not necessarily work for you, and I just want you to know that I used to struggle with debilitating anxiety to the point where I didn't want to get out of bed, and the only way I would get out of bed is by actually self-sabotaging with an overconsumption of sugar. That's what will distract my anxious thoughts. And, from my own personal experience, and, of course, if you're being prescribed medications and, like always, like make sure you talk to your doctor. However, I am a full believer that if you struggle with anxiety, it's because you are procrastinating on something that you know you need to do. And you either don't know how to confront it, or you either know that it will cause chaos and you're scared to confront it. I'm just saying from my own personal experience, because my anxiety used to be debilitating. And I also believe that people who are high strung like that, they have a superpower. So, you just choose what are you going to focus on. Now, regardless of where you're at, there are always going to be times in your life where anxiety levels are going to be higher. And I think the first thing that you need to do, right, like once you have that adrenaline rush, is breathe. Just breathe. You need to get oxygen into your system.
You ever, to your point,
Yeah.
when you have anxiety, you feel like every 5 seconds you want to take a deep breath,
Right.
and
You need to
sigh
breathe.
it out. It's because your
You
brain needs oxygen.
actually do need to intentionally
just-
breathe. So the first thing that you need to breathe, and then I will walk you through a series of questions that I ask myself, just to, allow myself to direct my thoughts intentionally. Question number 1, do I have any control over this in this moment? Yes or no? Okay.
Over this or over what's causing it?
Over what's causing it, right. Do I have any control? Question number 2 is, let's say if you're stalling on doing something that you know you need to do, or you're scared to have a confrontational conversation, what will be the worst thing that will happen? What will be the best thing that might happen? Okay? And oh man, there wasn't. What would be, so is it in my control? What would be the worst thing that will happen? What would be the best thing that will happen? What will happen? What could be the consequence if I don't do this? Okay. And, just focus on what can you do in that moment to help yourself feel better without self-sabotaging. So like for me, for example, when I was unaware, every time I would get anxious, I would just grab chocolate and start eating it. And that would lead to a binge, right? And because I used to really hate how that made me feel, I would over binge to a point where I would overconsume sugar until I would take myself to a coma because I didn't want to deal with it. and then I would wake up the next morning feeling super guilty because I would feel like absolute garbage, and I will have debilitating anxiety, right? However, you know, I would strongly recommend, if there is like a habit that could be really helpful as well. There are multiple habits. Meditation is a huge thing, because I think that, you know, meditation allows you to learn how to direct your thoughts over time. And I think that journaling is another great practice, because you're able to put your thoughts on paper and you're able to reflect on it over time and see, okay, like, what can I do better next time? And just have some kind of a reference point, because it's easy to say, okay, is this in my control? Yes, no, I don't know, right? But like, when you put it on paper, you're actually able to like spend more energy on it and being intentional about it, and then you can reflect back to it. Because look, let's say if you're a high-strung person, you don't go from being high-strung to being like, oh my gosh, I am the most peaceful person ever. It is a process. It's just like, you know, if you started this journey being overweight and now like you've gotten yourself to a point where you're jacked, it didn't happen overnight, right? Like there were so many like, you know, like hopefully if you're being intentional and consistent with it, it would look like this. But a lot of times it kind of looks like this, right? And I appreciate you asking this question, because, you know, you are actually, you know, making it a point to take charge over this emotion. You know, anxiety is just an indicator that something is off, right? And you just need to pinpoint what is off. And I feel like a lot of times we create stories in our own head that, you know, we give control to others where we actually have a lot more control than we think, or we create stories in our head that might not be true, however over time can be manifested in the other way. The last question that I'd say you need to ask yourself is this true, or is this something that I'm creating in my own head? And, you know, if you don't know, then the question that you need to ask yourself to support that is, what evidence do I have to support this answer? That, you know, maybe this is a story that I'm creating in my own head.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing that I love about this show that we do is there being two of us 99% of the time, is we both can have similar responses but slightly different, and say something, even if it's the same thing in a different way, that it hits one person but doesn't hit another person. So it's like, it's amazing. And I want to feed off of a couple of points. Basically what you said is, one of the questions that you said to ask is, do I have control? And so I'm thinking the main purpose of the anxiety is to get control of whatever it is you have control of. The first degree of whatever thing in the scenario you have control of that you can take action on. So, you know, whereas Sarit's saying like, if it's a conversation you need to have, if it's a, you know, a screaming kid, if it's whatever, like, oh, I don't have control necessarily that the kid is screaming. I can't make them stop screaming. Okay, what's the next thing that I can do that I do have control over, right? And so it's like, let me find the quickest point to where I know I have control so I can take action. My friend Craig Ballantyne wrote a book. It's like somewhere right there. It's called Unstoppable, and he says action beats anxiety. When you get into action, you can beat the anxiety. But oftentimes, like, anxiety will build on itself. You get anxious because you're anxious, and then you get more anxious if you don't figure it out. So the goal is, let me figure out what I do have control over immediately. Let me kind of like assess the situation. Is anybody dying? If the answer is no, then like take a deep breath and figure out like, what is the thing I have control over? What can I immediately get into action on? And usually when you start to get into action on something, you begin to forget that you had anxiety because you're in motion to handle it. And the sooner you can handle it in that moment, the less opportunity you give it to build on itself. And it can become debilitating if if you don't stop and analyze. So what we do is just say, like you, I'm gonna go eat a bunch of chocolate. It's like, let me run away from the problem for a second, but here's the deal. You can never get away from the problem. Mm-mm. Because it just keeps chasing you, and you find yourself keep running and running and running and running, and you run so long you get fatigued and you can't run anymore. Then it turns into something else. So it's important, instead of just saying, like, when you have the natural response to just be like, I'm just gonna go eat, like, it's a really feel good thing for a moment, but then what happens is now you don't only have anxiety from the thing that caused you at the beginning, but now you have anxiety because you're trying to run away from it and you're getting fatigued, but also now you have anxiety because you're taking these actions that are almost a reverse effect of what's going to help you be productive to get rid of that anxiety. So, and the same with stress. Like, stress, anxiety, like, they're two different things, but they're interrelated. Is that a word? Interrelated?
I think so.
Whatever, they're related, okay? And when you said, like, write it down, there is there's an amazing author, meditation, I don't even know what to call her, spiritual, whatever, Emily Fletcher, when she goes through this, like, meditation practice, she's like, it's painful because sometimes it's painful when you start, because when you sit with yourself, you have to face some things, and it's not easy. She's like, but better out than in. Because if this anxiety, if this thing that is causing stress and anxiety is living within you, it's painful, right? So if you write it down on a piece of paper and you have to face it, it can be painful, but you're getting it out of you. You're literally taking it and you're like, I'm gonna jam it on this piece of paper, and you're getting it out of you, and it's better it be painful on its way out than be painful because it's a cancer inside you, right? So consider that at the same time. So those were, like, the 2 cents that I had to add on to.
And you know what I was thinking about? So look, like, anxiety is it's a response. If you think about it, we've evolved over hundreds of thousands of years, and
It's a safety mechanism, actually.
it really is. Like, adrenaline levels go high, we're in fight or flight mode, and something that I recognized, like, at first for me, like, how I would deal would just be by self-destructing, by overeating, my emotions. And then, like, I started taking myself outside and away from the situation. And, like, movement is actually an incredible thing that, you can do as well. It just, keep in mind, it is very easy to go from one addiction to the next. So just really important to ask yourself why, and I think that's why, it's always really important to learn how to manage your mind, because, if you've got adrenaline pumping in your body, and now, let's say you go for a run or something, it's going to feel natural for you to run because you've got extra adrenaline. It's actually going to feel good, and you will be giving yourself time and space to, like, breathe air, right? Like, take in more oxygen, because when you're using more muscles, you need more oxygen, right? However, like, you want to make sure that you're also are able to reflect on the situation. And that's why I say it looks different for everybody, because for you the protocol could be, okay, let me ask myself first breathe, maybe ask myself the series of questions, maybe go for, like, a 30-minute walk, or maybe it's, like, something completely different. But the point is, this is why it's important that you make it a point to build and cultivate thought habits and mindset habits that are going to help you to build yourself to become a tougher person. Like, a tougher person doesn't necessarily mean, oh yeah, like, I got more muscles, I'm tough. It's like, no, like, toughness is your ability to continue going through life and persevering when shit gets harder and tougher. Okay, so I really hope that helps. That's a beautiful question. I would say take 1 to 3 things that you found valuable and just start there. Like, do it for at least 2 weeks before you even shift or add anything to it, so that you can see what's more effective for you, what's less effective for you, and what speaks to you more. So
Actually, I do want to add one more thing, because if you can discover what the cause of the stress and anxiety is, you'll also then want to consider, is there a way I can prevent this from happening in the future? If you can identify what is creating that, and you can eliminate that, if it's a person, sometimes people cause it, like especially negative people, like I'll just say it. If people are negative or narcissistic or
Unaware,
or
even
unaware, complaining all the time, like it takes energy away. And Lord knows we want to help every single person in that space, because that person's not living in their true genuine happiness either, and that's really what we're all striving for. So if you can, whatever, it might be a person, it might be work, it might be
either way, it's a problem.
Whatever it is, identify it, and then ask yourself, do I have the ability to remove this thing? Most likely the answer is yes. However, like it could be a big thing, like your job. You're like, I could remove my job, I could not show up anymore, but the consequence of that will be a big consequence, right? Or like, it's my husband, like the consequence of removing that could be a big deal. So if it's not a big deal, it's simple to remove it. If it is a big deal, then figure out, how do I have a conversation, or maybe it's with a boss, a spouse, a kid, whoever, so that I can minimize the likelihood of this stress and anxiety continuing to show up in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Ultimately, that would be the goal.
Yeah.
You want to do one more?
Yeah.
Okay, one more. This one's from Stephanie. Thank you for that, Helena. I think a lot of people will benefit from that question. Very good question. Stephanie, I just received my first order of the creatine.
Nice.
Okay, more supplement stuff. I strength train 3 times a week, and I do HIIT, high intensity interval training / cardio, twice a week. Okay, so we got 5 times a week workout. Do you recommend taking creatine at night to recover, or before and after training? This is great, because on the bag, I think it says before and after your workouts.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't take it that way. Sarit doesn't take it that way.
No.
Here's the big thing with creatine: be consistent.
I would say with any supplement.
Be consistent. Yeah, with any supplement, be consistent with it. And the thing about creatine, so I've heard. I didn't really read the studies on this, so I can't 100% say with all of my certainty, but I follow this rule simply because I can, and why not? I've heard from some smart people that I trust and respect that taking creatine around the same time as you're consuming caffeine, kind of just, they cancel each other out. And so we just take our creatine at night, because we know that it's very low likelihood that we're going to be consuming caffeine at any point in that time frame. So we know we can take it each night. We just take it before we go to bed. It's not going to be any different in effect if you're taking it like around a workout than if you're taking it at night, I don't think.
Right.
Because creatine, your body makes creatine anyways, so it's using it, but it's just the essential amount. So if you're wanting to, have any more
Boost strength, muscle gain,
muscle mass, yeah, any of that, cognitive function,
right?
Any of that, like, then it's an extra amount. So I don't think it really matters from an effectiveness.
Yeah. So, Stephanie, I mean, we actually work together, so I know you're a coffee drinker.
I appreciate her asking this question, because she knows she can just ask you, and I think she knows it will help other people too.
Yeah. So, look, I know you drink coffee, so make sure that you take it at a time where you give yourself a window after you've drank your caffeine and it's already in your system, to, be able to absorb the creatine more. I mean, that's why you're taking it already. So, I know based on the other supplements that you're taking, there is an evening dosage. So I would just say take it with your evening dosage of your supplements and you'll be good.
Another just quick note about creatine, probably not quick because I'm Erin, I don't know how to shut up, and I don't apologize for it, is if you're hearing this, like a lot of people in our community use the X Endurance creatine, so it's easy for us to just kind of assume that y'all are taking it, but it could be the case that you're not, or you're interested and you're not sure what kind to take. It's really important that you have a quality creatine, and if you have, otherwise it's a waste of money. That's why, and it can do other things to your body that I don't think you're looking for in taking that supplement. So if you have a good quality creatine, there's no reason you should need to cycle on or off of it. There's no reason you should feel bloating. There's no reason you feel like you need to drink extra amounts of water.
Because you shouldn't have to take it with grape juice.
Yeah, if it's a pure creatine, and a good way to know is if it's branded Crea Pure somewhere on the package, which the logo's like a it's not like an Adidas logo, but it's like a little, there's like diagonal lines. Anyways, it says Crea Pure, and they just have strict guidelines, standards, rules, laws, I don't know, whatever it is. I believe the company is in Germany, and they just have really strict guidelines for their filtering process and how it is made, so that there are not extra kind of garbage material in it that's just filler. So
yeah, creatine is something that is commonly used like amongst like male bodybuilders. Like, yeah, we all want to get jacked. However, it is a supplement that is very common within our community because we actually know the benefits of creatine and we feel privileged to have access to quality creatine. Most creatines out there are absolute garbage, like the ones that you get off the shelf.
Like GNC, Vitamin Shock.
That's
kinda
dirty creatine. It is not filtered properly. It's going to make you bloated.
They make it really cheap,
Yeah.
and it performs really cheap.
Yeah. However, if you care to live longer, if you care to be stronger, if you care to be more toned, if you care to, be able to sustain, a better functioning metabolism over a long period of time, creatine can help you with that directly and indirectly. I don't know about you guys, but I want to be able to think better. I want to be able to lift heavier, stronger, longer, and that's why I take the creatine, and that's why I recommend every woman to take the creatine. However, only make it a point to invest in creatine if you plan on taking it,
Regularly.
consistently for a long period of time. And if it is top-notch stuff. If you're like, oh, let me get the cheaper thing because it's $10 less than the X Endurance. If
It's
you're
$10
going for
that
cheap,
goes in
you're
the
going to
garbage.
get cheap results.
And,
Just saying.
and I want to say too, a cheap creatine means you're literally you're like, oh, it costs less money. But what it is you're getting nothing and throwing that money in the toilet and flushing it.
Yeah.
So anyways, Melissa said that on her labs, her creatine level went from 0.5 to 0.68. So the reason, I don't know how they measure these on labs, to be honest.
I'm pretty sure blood test.
Right. But in what? 0.5 what?
Oh, like what the unit of measurements?
Yeah.
Maybe it's milligrams.
I don't know. So, but the reason I bring this up is because when we're talking about creatines that are ineffective, that wouldn't happen because you don't absorb it. So that's why I say when you're throwing it in the toilet, it comes out of you as waste.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not really just what you put behind, like past your lips. It is what your body will absorb.
Yeah.
So that's why we love X Endurance too, the absorbability of all of their products. They make them specifically, just for an example really quick, the Immune Boost.
Mm-hmm.
Minerals are really hard for a body to absorb because they're like rocks, right? They're like little microscopic rocks,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in order for the body to pull them into the bloodstream, they put it almost like if you take the rock and you wrap it in an amino acid, which is like a part of a protein, right? The smallest form of a protein, an amino acid. Your body recognizes it as an amino acid and wants it. So it's like, whoop, I'm gonna pull it in. It's like you're smuggling the minerals into the bloodstream, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Anyways, like that's how thoughtful they are in the process of like developing these products. So they did not just white label, buy some other formula and put their label on it so they could sell it. That's how things are cheap. They've literally created all their own formulas. So it's amazing. Anyways, side note. Thank you guys for joining us today. It's really our pleasure. I think speak for both of us when I say we really enjoy hanging out with y'all.
Yes.
And
Yeah, we hope that we're gonna get to hang out with you live in person in 2 months. We do have the ENS Live 2022 coming up in Hollywood, Florida, and you can either join us in person. Tickets are limited for that. We're 70% full already. So, you know, if you know that you want to come in person, make it a point to, you know, commit sooner rather than later before tickets run out. Otherwise, there's also the virtual option where you can hang out with us for an entire day and literally do all of the activities that we have planned from your living room, office, or wherever you'll be watching it. It is taking place all day on November 12th, 2022. And yeah, we're probably also going to be having special guests, which I think you're going to be really excited
wink, wink.
to meet.
Maybe.
But yeah, we've had a
We cannot
conversation
confirm
with
nor
them
deny.
yesterday, and they're very
We
excited.
can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah, they're very excited. So, yeah, we hope to see you guys there. If you know that you're joining us and you're already in, let me see you drop a Y for yes. If you happen to be on the fence, you're like, I think I'm going, got to figure out a couple of stuff, drop an O for on the fence. If you're like, not this time, we respect it. Drop an N. We want to see who's already in, who's committed, who
Brooke,
are we going to
Ashley.
get to hug in person. Brooke Della Sala is in. Danielle is
Warner.
doing it virtual. Ashley's in. Audrey's in. Elizabeth in. Kelly on the fence. Yes, I know you're taking care of business, girl. You do that. Elizabeth in, Amy in, Tasha on the fence.
Tasha, just imagine the embrace right here.
Yeah, and by the way, if you happen to have any specific questions because you need more information with regards to anything ENS Live, just go ahead and email support@erinandsarit.com. We
Cool.
want to give you guys such an incredible experience. Like, imagine all of this in person. And forget about us, but it's like the coaches,
All of these
and
people in the chat.
you guys together with one another, eating clean food, working out together, laughing together, probably
learning together,
probably crying together. Yeah. So we really look forward to seeing you guys there. We hope that you have a beautiful weekend. And
If you enjoyed this and you got value out of this, whatever platform you're listening to or watching it on, please share it with somebody that you know that it will help. This is how we help each other, okay? It's
Yes.
the ripple effect. So that's all we ask of you. We do enjoy spending our time with you, but if there's anything that we can ask that you do is that you share and pay it forward and help somebody else get benefit as well. So thank you for being part of this. and we'll see you guys next time.
Take care. See you next week.